When I handed the divorce papers to Olivia, she was occupied on the phone, talking sweetly to her current boyfriend. "Olivia, let's get a divorce," I said plainly. "Just sign this. After the 1-month cooling-off period ends, we can finalize everything and go our separate ways." Hearing me, she casually responded with an "uh-huh," and took the documents. Without even looking at the contents, she flipped straight to the last page and signed her name, seemingly preoccupied. After signing, she stood up, grabbed her coat, still murmuring affectionate words into her phone. Okay, I'll come over and keep you company," she whispered. After ending the call, Olivia reached the door before appearing to remember something. She turned back to look at me. "Oh, right, Alex. What was it you just had me sign?" she asks now, after putting her signature on it. A small, humorless smile touched my lips. "If you plan on buying any property in the future, maybe don't have me handle the contracts." Olivia waved her hand dismissively. "I'm busy charming someone right now. I've spent the last few days with you, and now he's annoyed with me." Hearing this, I realized she hadn't actually heard a word I said about the divorce. She genuinely thought she had signed some kind of real estate document. It reminded me of how, during our worst arguments in the past, I would sometimes use Olivia's funds to buy entire apartment buildings. The property market was declining, but I'd invest billions just as a way to cope with my own frustration and hurt. Back then, I still held on to some hope for our relationship. That lingering affection made it difficult to accept how much she seemed to have changed. Why did she have to change? I recalled our first meeting in a bar. I was there to pick up a friend and found Olivia drunk, nearly falling over. I helped her up simply out of basic courtesy. She took one look at me and seemed immediately interested. Olivia was well known, an heiress from a wealthy family, very attractive, with a reputation for changing boyfriends frequently. It felt like half the eligible men in the city had been involved with her at some point. I didn't want to become another name on her list, so I tried to keep my distance. But instead of losing interest, she pursued me even more determinedly, focusing only on me. On Valentine's Day, she arranged for an entire public square to be filled with flowers just for me. She was constantly by my side, especially when I was going through difficult times. Her persistence and grand gestures eventually wore down my resistance. When we finally started dating, she seemed to leave her previous lifestyle behind, concentrating entirely on our relationship. She would always let me know where she was going. Everyone remarked that Olivia had truly changed for me, and I believed it too. So, when she proposed marriage, her eyes filled with tears, I happily accepted. However, less than a year after we got married, she started getting involved with other men again. We argued countless times in our home, the signs of conflict often visible in the disarray of our living room. I would be furious, while she would just look weary, pressing her fingers to her temples. Eventually, she suggested an arrangement where we could both see other people, but would always return home afterward. "Alex, I do love you," she'd said. "But being with just one person forever sounds boring. Let's both explore things with others and just come back home when we're done." I couldn't agree to such terms, but my refusal didn't stop her. She went ahead with her plan anyway. Gradually, the situation wore me down, too. Feeling defeated, I also started seeing someone else, a young, seemingly innocent college student named Sophia. Initially, it was partly out of spite towards Olivia, but Sophia was genuinely kind. She spoke affectionately to me and was always supportive during my low moments. She stayed by my side when a serious car accident nearly killed me, attending follow-up appointments and offering comfort. Her uncomplicated nature was a relief, helping me cope with the emotional pain from my marriage. Over time, I considered offering her financial support, maybe buying her an apartment or giving her money, but she refused it all. The only thing she asked for was a real commitment. "Leave her and try being with me," she had said, her eyes clear and full of affection. Looking at her, I saw a reflection of myself, damaged by my marriage, but not entirely broken. She seemed to possess a certain brightness. In that moment, I felt moved. Life is too short, I thought. Even children know to replace broken toys. What had I been doing, caught in this destructive cycle with Olivia for so long? So, I agreed. I decided to end things with Olivia and commit to a future with Sophia. Just after Olivia left that day, I received a video call from Sophia. She was in her kitchen, cooking, wearing a simple white shirt. Her soft hair brushed against her forehead, and her eyelashes fluttered as she looked at the screen. She appeared delicate and gentle. "Did you finalize the divorce?" she asked. Even though I was significantly older and more experienced than her, looking at her face still made me feel a little flustered, my heart beating faster. "Yeah, the papers are signed," I replied. "In a month, it will all be completely finished." Sophia's lips curved into a slight smile of satisfaction. "If it's done, then make sure she doesn't touch you during this next month. I'll be checking." I wasn't expecting her to say something like that. My face felt warm, and I firmly told her, "Don't talk like that." For a brief moment, a possessive look flickered in her eyes before she pouted. "You're mine now. I don't want to share you." Concerned the conversation might head in an inappropriate direction, I quickly changed the subject, complimenting her cooking until she hung up, smiling. She was wonderful, really, just sometimes a bit possessive. After the call, I bought a calendar specifically for the next month. I planned to mark off each passing day. From October 1st to the 10th, Olivia didn't return home once, but I generally knew where she was, who she was with, and what they were doing. Her new interest, a man named Ben, who also worked at one of her companies, seemed keen on publicizing their activities on social media. Every day there were posts of them having afternoon tea, playing golf, enjoying city views from a hilltop villa, or relaxing in a hot spring together. It was somewhat amusing because Olivia, with her typically restless nature, had never focused on one man for so long before. Most of her previous involvements lasted a month at most before she grew bored. This Ben character, however, had managed to keep her attention for over 3 months. Perhaps this unusually long duration gave him a sense of confidence. Unlike Olivia's other partners who usually kept a low profile, Ben boldly added me on social media, which felt like a subtle provocation. I didn't pay much attention to these minor attempts at stirring trouble. I was on the verge of divorce. Why would I care? Lately, I'd been busy clearing out the house. Razors I'd meticulously chosen, suits that were pressed daily, and even a limited edition Patek Philippe watch I'd stayed up all night to acquire online. Anything she had ever given me, big or small, expensive or cheap, was packed up and thrown out. Along with these items, I tried to discard all the resentment from our marriage and the genuine feelings I once had for Olivia. I had decided to leave the past behind and start fresh. 2 days later, Olivia finally came back. She frowned as she noticed the villa seemed noticeably emptier. "Alex, did you throw away my things?" I was flipping through a magazine and simply grunted in response. "Yeah, got rid of them," I added. "They were things you gave me. I can throw them away if I want. Besides, you hardly ever come home, so it's not like you need them." Olivia seemed to think I was still upset about our last conversation, and was saying these things deliberately. She sat down next to me, attempting to smooth things over casually. "Didn't we agree we'd both do our own thing outside, but not get serious with anyone? Why are you suddenly making a fuss?" Ah, there it was again. Her casual way of justifying her actions. No matter what she did, she always had a ready excuse, and as her husband, I was expected to silently endure the hurt. But I was done arguing about these pointless issues. I snapped the magazine shut and headed upstairs, my tone deliberately cold. "You're reading too much into it. I honestly don't care." Olivia assumed I was pretending not to care and reached out to hold my hand. Under my impatient gaze, she pulled an invitation card from her pocket and placed it in my hand. "Don't be upset. I'm taking you to an auction tomorrow. You can bid on whatever you like to cheer yourself up, okay?" My first instinct was to refuse. But then I glanced at the Sotheby's logo on the invitation and changed my mind. I agreed. After all, we were getting divorced. I might as well spend some of her money while I still technically could. At 5 p.m. the next day, Olivia's car arrived punctually at the villa entrance. I had a bag in hand and was about to open the car door when I saw a familiar face inside. It was Ben, sitting in the passenger seat, holding a large bag of snacks and drinks. He greeted me with a cheerful, almost innocent expression. "Sir, I tend to get carsick. Would you mind sitting in the back today?" Noticing a brief look of self-satisfaction in his eyes, I glanced towards the dashboard and saw a custom decoration piece prominently displayed, bearing the sign, "Ben's Exclusive Passenger Seat." Before I could say anything, Olivia, sensing my potential displeasure, spoke softly, trying to coax me. "Ben's never been to an auction before. I'm just bringing him along to experience it. He's a bit sensitive, Alex. Can you accommodate him this time?" "Sure, why not?" I wasn't competing for her affection anymore. It was just a car seat. I gave a light chuckle and got into the back. Throughout the drive, Ben nibbled on various cakes and snacks, even feeding some bites to Olivia using his own fork, making a show of their closeness. The two chatted about various things, Olivia laughing frequently at his jokes and occasional complaints. I didn't even look their way, choosing instead to watch the autumn scenery pass by the car window. When we arrived at the venue, it wasn't long before Ben started complaining that his shoes were uncomfortable. Olivia teasingly called him delicate, but then immediately led him to a nearby high-end mall to buy him some flat shoes. She patiently helped him try on pair after pair. Watching her half kneel to check the softness of a shoe, I couldn't help but remember a time when I was sick with a high fever, desperately hoping she would simply bring me a glass of water. She had refused then, citing some reason related to her status. Indeed, Ben was treated like her special charge, receiving preferential treatment. But hadn't I also been cherished by her in a similar way once? Back when she was pursuing me, I hadn't wanted to give in easily. I jokingly told her that if she could get me some specific red bean cakes from a shop clear across the city, I might consider dating her. It was snowing heavily that day, making the task obviously difficult. Nevertheless, she set off immediately, returning 5 hours later with the cakes still warm, held close inside her coat. Many times since then I wondered why, if her feelings back then were genuine, she had changed so drastically. Or perhaps she hadn't changed at all. Maybe I had just failed to see her true nature from the beginning. Like overlooking the vast depths of an ocean, I thought. No one can truly fathom its full extent. I gave a quiet, self-deprecating laugh, took my invitation, and entered the auction venue ahead of them. It wasn't until the first item was presented for bidding that Olivia and Ben finally made their entrance. The event combined an auction with a dinner reception. Tables were laden with food, including seasonal crabs. As they sat down, Ben immediately focused on the crab, asking Olivia to get some for him. With a resigned but gentle smile, Olivia carefully rolled up his sleeves, declined assistance from a nearby waiter, and proceeded to expertly crack the crab herself, serving the meat and roe onto his plate. Ben looked at her with open admiration. I, however, remained a quiet observer. I noticed that after finishing the crab, Ben pointed towards a rare, limited-edition luxury watch being showcased on stage. Olivia promptly raised her bidding paddle. "Table 17 bids $300 million, the auctioneer announced. The price immediately caused a stir in the room. No one else dared to compete, and gasps could be heard all around. Soon after, there was a break in the auction for mingling. Several guests carrying drinks made their way towards table 17, likely hoping to network. Noticing how attentive Olivia was to Ben, they began directing their flattery towards him as well, calling him Sir. Olivia looked up and casually corrected them. "Oops, you've mistaken him. That gentleman over there is actually my husband." In an instant, the guests who had misdirected their compliments looked extremely awkward and quickly tried to recover. I remained silent, ignoring the surprised and somewhat pitying glances cast my way. They weren't entirely wrong, though. Soon enough, I wouldn't be Mr. Alex anymore. Given how Olivia doted on Ben, who knew, maybe she'd let him move in right after the divorce was finalized. After the short break, the auction resumed, featuring antiques in the second half. I wasn't particularly interested in those items. I simply bid on a few of the most valuable collectibles available earlier and decided to leave. As I reached the elevator, I suddenly heard Ben's voice behind me. "Mister, do you have a minute to chat?" I paused. "There's nothing for us to talk about," I started to say. Before I could finish, I saw Ben raise his hand. The next moment, a sharp slap landed hard across my face. The force of it was surprising, and my cheek instantly turned bright red. I instinctively covered my face, my mind reeling for a second, completely blank. "Ben, what was that for?" Once the initial shock subsided, anger surged through me. I raised my own hand to retaliate, but it never reached Ben's face. Olivia appeared suddenly and caught my wrist mid-air. "Alex," she said, her voice tight with anger. "Ben didn't provoke you. Why would you try to hit him?" I yanked my hand back, feeling the sting on my face. My voice trembled slightly. "Me? Hit him? Olivia, ask anyone here who hit who first." Hearing this, Ben immediately adopted a pitiful expression, tears welling in his eyes. "Olivia, you told me I needed to be more assertive, so I thought I'd try confronting your husband in public to build some confidence. When else would I get such an opportunity? But Mr. looked so intimidating just now I got scared. Wah wah." Once Olivia seemed to grasp his version of events, she frowned. "I told you to be brave, not to hit people, and especially not Alex." Ben sniffled, tears streaming down his face like broken pearls. "I'm sorry. I was foolish. You said he was easygoing, so I thought hitting him wouldn't even bother him much. I didn't expect him to react like this." His crying seemed to soften Olivia's resolve, and she forgot her initial anger towards him. She wiped his tears and tried to comfort him. "It's okay, no one's blaming you. Stop crying, it's all right." Watching this exchange, a mixture of anger and pain built up inside me, and I couldn't stay silent any longer. I raised my voice. "Olivia, I'm the one who got slapped. How can you just forgive him on my behalf? And Ben, what kind of act are you putting on? Who honestly thinks hitting someone is a way to get brave?" My words seemed to startle Ben, and he began crying even harder, gasping for breath as if he were about to faint. Olivia was clearly moved by his distress and turned to me dismissively. "Ben grew up sheltered. He doesn't have much physical strength. How hard could his slap have been? And now he feels so guilty he's practically fainting from crying. Alex, that's enough." Saying that, she helped Ben leave. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. It felt like being plunged into ice-cold water. In the end, I'm not even sure how I managed to get home. I kept telling myself not to show any weakness, holding back tears the entire way. My eyes ended up bloodshot. When I finally arrived home, the housekeeper, Mrs. Evans, noticed the red mark on my face and looked shocked. She asked if someone had bullied me and was ready to call Olivia to defend me. "No need." I stopped her softly. All the pain I felt, it ultimately stemmed from Olivia's actions or inactions. I sat by the window, holding an ice pack to my face for an hour. The swelling eventually subsided a bit. Then I received a message from Ben. "Mister, made it home okay? I'm currently at the hospital. Olivia was so worried about me when I fainted earlier that she booked the entire VIP floor and has a dozen doctors running tests on me. By the way, how's your face? Must really hurt after what I did. Look, if you want, you can swing by the hospital, and maybe I'll let you borrow one of my doctors to make sure your face is all right. I just glanced at the message and forwarded it directly to Olivia. It wasn't until the early hours of the morning that she replied with a few short words. He meant well. I laughed then, a hollow sound that felt mixed with unshed tears. In the next moment, I sent her a voice message. You're protecting him so much, why don't you just marry him? I'll step aside and wish you both a long and happy life together, Olivia replied, almost instantly. Alex, why are you saying things out of anger? How many times do I need to tell you? You are my husband. With these other people, I'm just passing the time. Don't overthink things. Please get some rest. I'll be home tomorrow. Seeing that message, I felt a wave of frustration, like wanting to punch something soft. I gave another bitter chuckle and, not wanting any more pointless exchanges, turned off my phone. The next day after lunch, I drove to Olivia's parents' old house. I brought the jade jewelry set, supposedly a family heirloom, that her mother had given me when we got married. Unfortunately, I learned that Olivia's parents had flown to Bali for vacation that morning, so they weren't home. Hearing they wouldn't be back for another month, I simply handed the jewelry box to their housekeeper and left. After stopping at a store to pick up a few things, I headed back to our villa. The lights were on in the living room. Olivia was sitting on the sofa with a collection of gift boxes piled on the coffee table in front of her. Hearing me enter, she put down her phone and glanced my way. I heard from the housekeeper that you returned the family heirloom. I just made a non-committal sound like, Olivia let out a small sigh and sat down beside me. Are you still upset? Come on, I bought you so many gifts. Can you forgive me just this once? Even when I returned the heirloom, her first assumption was still that I was merely angry, not that I was seriously trying to sever ties. She was that self-assured, so confident that I would never actually leave her. That confidence was why she felt free to do whatever she wanted and propose absurd arrangements like seeing other people, hurting me repeatedly with different men. I didn't say anything. I just glanced at the gift box with the familiar logo, then looked away with a slightly sarcastic expression. The things I truly value are unique, one of a kind. Olivia seemed puzzled. For a moment, she looked startled, perhaps realizing I knew she had likely bought the same gift for Ben. Alex, you've misunderstood, she said quickly. I sincerely wanted to apologize. I asked Ben to help me choose a gift. He happened to like it too, so I bought two. Don't worry about such minor details, okay? Minor details, minor details. I was so tired of hearing that phrase. I pushed the gifts away, scattering them slightly. Gifts can be bought in duplicates. Is your affection divided into pieces too, Olivia? I'm starting to regret it now. My eyes felt wet. Regret trusting her back then, regret marrying her. I didn't finish my sentence, but Olivia understood my implication. She couldn't remain seated anymore. Grabbing my hand, she said earnestly, Alex, you have to know my heart truly belongs only to you. If not, why would I have married you? Just give me a few more years. A few more years to enjoy myself, and then I promise I'll come back to you properly. Empty promises. I didn't want to hear them anymore. I pulled my hand away, my voice surprisingly calm. Then just wait. She seemed to think I had calmed down. She started picking up the scattered gift bags from the floor to hand them back to me. I knew she hadn't understood the real meaning behind my words, but I didn't bother explaining further. I took the bags and simply headed upstairs. I was waiting for the divorce cooling-off period to end, not for her to suddenly change her ways. My birthday was approaching. Olivia's parents, despite being overseas, remembered and arranged for a valuable jade bracelet to be shipped from Europe as a gift. They sent it to the company headquarters address. I had intended to tell them about the divorce agreement with Olivia, but since they were away traveling, I didn't want to spoil their trip, so I held off. I stopped by the company office. Olivia's parents had left the gift on my desk. Olivia herself was in a meeting, so I went into my office alone. The moment I opened the door, I saw Ben already there. He had removed the outer packaging and was wearing the glittering jade bracelet on his wrist. Seeing me, Ben looked startled and immediately put on a timid, frightened expression. "Sir, what brings you here?" I wasn't interested in his performance. I walked towards him, intending to retrieve my bracelet. "Came to get what's mine." At my words, a flash of envy and reluctance crossed Ben's eyes. He held on to the bracelet tightly. "Like it that much?" Seeing his possessiveness, I was about to just let him have it when Ben deliberately scraped his fingers against the sharp edge of the desk. Blood immediately dripped from his fingertips. He collapsed onto the nearby couch, sobbing softly. "Sir, it just looked so nice. I only wanted to admire it for a little longer. Do you have to be so harsh?" Before I could react, I felt a strong push from behind. I lost my balance and fell hard against the coffee table. My forehead struck the sharp edge with a thud, and I felt blood instantly. The pain made my face go pale. As I looked up, I saw Olivia rushing into the room, her eyes filled with concern, but directed entirely at Ben's minor finger wound. She fussed over him, cleaning and bandaging it carefully. In that moment, I understood Ben's deliberate act. I managed to stand up shakily, picked up the blood-stained bracelet from the floor, and held it out towards Ben. Olivia, mistaking my action for showing off, felt an inexplicable anger rise within her. She was about to scold me when I spoke first. "You like it? It's yours. Take it." Ben stopped his fake crying, looking surprised. Olivia didn't understand what I was doing either, frowning deeply. "That was a gift from Mom and Dad. For you." "For me?" I clarified calmly. "No, it's for their son-in-law, a position I soon won't hold." I placed the bracelet down on the table. "I have a thing about cleanliness. Blood-stained items feel unlucky. It's all yours now." I didn't wait to see their reactions, leaving the office immediately. Watching my calm departure, Olivia frowned deeply. Since we got married, my two main interests were known to be investing in property and collecting jade artifacts. When I got upset, she would usually use gifts related to these hobbies to appease me. For me to just give away such a valuable collectible jade piece so easily, it seemed significant. When my birthday arrived, Olivia still hadn't returned. At the small gathering I arranged, everyone kept asking about her, assuming she was preparing some grand surprise. Traditionally, she had always been present and attentive on my birthday. I wasn't particularly concerned about her whereabouts. I just wanted to mark the occasion. Right after today, I'd be 27, ready to start a new phase of my life. Why dwell on the past? I didn't answer their questions directly. Instead, I picked up a champagne bottle, shaking it like I was about to launch a firework. "Here's to me, on my birthday." My voice felt full of a newfound sense of freedom and relief. My friends laughed and raised their glasses. "To the handsome, young, and kind Alex's birthday." I chuckled. "Not for much longer. Olivia and I are divorced." Just as I uttered the word divorced, the sound of the front door being abruptly opened interrupted the moment. The guests in the living room turned to see Ben standing awkwardly in the doorway, supporting a clearly intoxicated Olivia. With so many eyes suddenly on him, Ben's face flushed red, and he stammered, "Sorry to interrupt. I just brought Olivia back." It was my birthday. Why was Olivia out getting drunk? The question hung unspoken in the air. I appeared unfazed. I put down my drink and walked towards the door, intending to help Olivia inside. But she refused to let go of Ben's hand, even hugging him tightly. Then, right in front of everyone, she leaned in and kissed Ben's forehead. Ben's face turned scarlet instantly. The onlookers were visibly shocked by this public display. I acted as if I hadn't noticed, just tightening my grip slightly to guide Olivia. Impatiently, she pushed me away and buried her head against Ben's neck, her tone teasing. "Why do you smell so good, huh?" Her comment silenced the entire room. Ben blushed, though a hint of pride flickered in his eyes. Still, he tried to play it down. "Sir, Olivia's just drunk and talking nonsense. Please don't mind her. She's been overworked lately and must have forgotten it was your birthday." His seemingly innocent explanation somehow managed to irritate me. Without bothering to point out the flaws in his excuses, I took a few steps back, gesturing towards the stairs. "The bedroom is on the second floor, the last door on the left. Help her up there." Ben hadn't expected me to remain so calm. His practiced smile froze for a moment, but soon he nodded and guided Olivia upstairs. Once they were out of sight, I picked up the champagne bottle again and smiled at the remaining guests. Anyone still in the mood for a drink? Understandably, the atmosphere was ruined. Everyone started making excuses and gradually left. Watching the living room slowly empty, I leaned against the sofa, sipping my drink. Around 11 p.m., Ben finally came downstairs. With no audience left, he swaggered out, slamming the door behind him for effect. Just after he left, my phone rang. Seeing Sophia's name on the screen, a small smile touched my usually serious face. "Didn't we just talk this morning?" On the other end, Sophia's voice sounded a little down. "It's your birthday. If you won't come see me, can't I at least call to wish you happy birthday?" Thinking about how disappointed she had sounded earlier when I couldn't meet her, my tone softened, and I began to coax her gently. "Sweetheart, this is the last birthday I'll spend while technically married. If it makes you happy, I'll dedicate all my future birthdays to you. You can plan the celebrations however you want." Hearing this, Sophia sounded amused again. "Anything I want? Promise you won't take it back?" I chuckled softly. "I even got divorced for you. When have I ever broken a promise to you?" We chatted for quite a while. After wrapping up our conversation, I was about to hang up when fireworks suddenly erupted outside. Turning towards the window, I saw the dark night sky illuminated by millions of bright explosions, far more spectacular than any meteor shower. Sophia's gentle but firm voice came through the phone. This time she didn't use any pet names. "Alex, happy birthday. Every year from now on, I'll be by your side." Her words stunned me. Did Sophia arrange this massive fireworks display? I rushed to the window, realizing the lights seemed to cover the entire city. It must have been incredibly expensive. Sophia was just a student. How could she possibly afford something like this? It had to be a coincidence. The next day, Olivia woke up and saw the remnants of the party decorations still up in the living room. It finally registered that yesterday had been my birthday. Rubbing her aching head, she called her assistant, instructing them to select the most expensive jade pieces available and have them delivered to me immediately. But instead of her secretary, Ben showed up with the gifts. Seeing him, Olivia's headache seemed to worsen, and her tone was sharper than usual. "Why are you here?" Ben pouted, his eyes filling with manufactured hurt. "I wanted to see you sooner, so I volunteered to bring the gifts over. I'm sorry if I'm bothering you. I won't come again." Olivia couldn't resist his act. Watching him pretend to be on the verge of tears, she softened and quickly reassured him. "All right. I didn't mean it that way. Don't cry, okay?" Ben continued his dramatic performance, crying even more pitifully. Desperate to calm him down, Olivia promised she would grant any request he made. His tears finally stopped, and he spoke softly. Anything? Even if it's a star from the sky, I'll get it for you. I want to stay in this villa for a few days, Ben requested. I want to be with you all the time. Olivia's smile faltered slightly. Not because she didn't want him there, but because she remembered promising me, no matter what, that she wouldn't bring anyone else home to stay. Just as she was about to refuse, footsteps sounded on the staircase, accompanied by Mrs. Evans' greetings. Olivia quickly stood up, intending to explain Ben's presence to me, but Ben spoke first. Good morning, sir. Here are the birthday gifts from Olivia. He added casually, Oh, by the way, my neighborhood has had some security issues lately, so Olivia agreed I could stay here for a few days. You don't mind, right? I ignored his deliberate provocation, my expression remaining neutral. Suit yourself? Ben hadn't expected me to be so indifferent, and he momentarily forgot the lines he had prepared to boast further. Olivia was also surprised by my easygoing response. Just as she was about to speak, Ben clung to her arm, acting like a spoiled child. See? Alex is totally okay with it. The words of refusal died in Olivia's throat. She looked up at me and finally seemed to notice something was off. She frowned slightly. Alex, do you really not mind? My expression was indifferent. It doesn't matter. Let him stay. After that, I signaled for Mrs. Evans to serve breakfast and leisurely returned to my room. Pleased at having achieved his goal, Ben immediately went back to his place to pack his bags. Olivia, however, was left standing there, frozen. All morning she seemed uneasy and found excuses to knock on my door several times. Ben can be a bit noisy sometimes. Aren't you worried he'll disturb you by moving in? If you're not happy about it, just tell me. I won't let him stay. Alex, I told you before, those people outside are just for fun. They can't compare to you. Don't keep things bottled up. Again and again, her attempts to gauge my reaction grew annoying. I pressed my fingers to my temples. I told you I really don't mind. Seeing my unwavering expression, Olivia, usually so nonchalant, suddenly felt a wave of panic. Why don't you mind? You weren't like this before. I glanced at her and offered a natural-seeming smile. Isn't that good? Didn't you always hope I'd react this way? With that, I used the excuse of needing sleep to gently usher her out of my room. That night, Ben moved in with his luggage. I watched as he acted like he owned the place, ordering the household staff around, but I said nothing. I just quietly tore off another page from the wall calendar I had put up. The sound of the paper ripping seemed unusually loud in the quiet house, sending a shiver down Olivia's spine. Seeing only a few pages remaining, she couldn't help but ask, Do you tear a page off that calendar every day? Is it for something important? Nope, I replied casually. Just for fun. My nonchalant tone seemed to make Olivia increasingly anxious. She thought about my recent strange behavior, which seemed to start after Ben appeared and suddenly seemed to have a moment of realization. Watching Ben upstairs, pointing and giving orders, she finally stood up. Alex, this is our home. My promise still stands. Ben doesn't belong here. I'll send him back today. With that, she rushed upstairs. It was unclear exactly what she said to Ben, but soon he emerged, looking teary-eyed, and reluctantly left with Olivia carrying his suitcase. Finally, peace returned to the house. For the next few days, Olivia didn't come back. I didn't mind. I kept myself busy packing my remaining belongings. On the third-to-last day before the cooling-off period ended, I visited a notary public to ensure that the properties purchased using Olivia's credit cards were legally registered under my name. The day before the last, I moved all the valuable collectibles from the display cabinets in the villa to a secure bank vault, planning to transfer them to a new location after the divorce was officially finalized. I had wasted 5 years of my life on Olivia. I wasn't leaving empty-handed. This was compensation for emotional damages. On the final day, I tore off the last page of the calendar. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ben, containing a picture of the pocket watch my late grandmother had given me. "Sir, I borrowed your watch because it looked nice, but I'm bored with it now. Come pick it up." Anger flared as I read the taunting text. I immediately drove to the location he provided. My car stopped near the central bridge. Ben stood by the riverbank, holding the watch up, a mocking grin on his face. "Alex, I called you here today just to see who Olivia cares about more, you or me." I had a bad feeling about this, but seeing the watch dangling precariously, I couldn't afford to waste time or energy arguing. I moved forward, reaching out to take it back. Ben seemed put off by my lack of reaction, by my apparent indifference. He seemed to hate my above-it-all attitude, likely thinking my success was solely due to Olivia's influence. Overcome by jealousy and spite, Ben suddenly tossed the watch into the river. His action infuriated me. Seeing Ben's smug expression, I finally snapped and slapped him hard across the face. David staggered back, covering his cheek. He was about to retort angrily, but then noticed a car speeding towards the bridge in his peripheral vision. In a calculated move, he shoved me forcefully into the river. As Olivia jumped out of the arriving car, Ben quickly dived into the frigid water after me. He grabbed onto me, dragging me down as I desperately searched the murky water for the watch. I finally located it just as my air was running out. I swam upwards with all my remaining strength, only to have Ben cling to me, holding me back. I was weakening, my vision blurring, everything fading as we both began to sink again. There was another splash. Olivia had jumped in. Before losing consciousness completely, I saw her swim determinedly towards Ben, ignoring me. I watched her save him, pull him to the shore. I watched her cradle an unconscious Ben, calling his name repeatedly. She never once looked in my direction. Through my blurred vision, tears slid down my face. Summoning a final burst of strength, I surged out of the water. The afternoon sun felt warm on my drenched body as I climbed onto the riverbank, gasping for air. Standing tall, I looked towards the bridge where Olivia was now administering CPR to Ben. Tightening my grip on the recovered watch, I started walking towards the street. Just as we passed each other, Olivia belatedly called out my name. "Alex, you can swim! That's why I saved Ben first. Are you okay?" I paused for only a moment. "I'm fine." Watching Ben slowly open his eyes, Olivia finally seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. She walked over and grabbed my hand, saying, "Alex, let me take you home." Before she could finish, Ben's weak voice interrupted from the ground, sounding teary. "Olivia, my head hurts." Olivia hesitated for a moment. My voice hoarse, I said, "You should take care of him. Don't worry about me." Olivia quickly replied, "I'll just take him to the hospital and come right back to be with you." From where she couldn't see my face, I shook my head, tears in my eyes. My meaning was clear. From this point forward, she didn't need to worry about me anymore. After today, our marriage was officially over. We had nothing more to do with each other. Olivia, 7 years of this turmoil are finally finished. Today I've let go, just as you always seemed to want. And I'm moving on, into someone else's care. With that thought, I stumbled towards my parked car, step by step, and opened the door. For some reason, watching my retreating back, Olivia seemed to feel a sudden sense of panic. "Alex!" she called out instinctively, but I didn't turn around. She could only watch as my car drove out of sight. When I got home, the butler, whom I had notified ahead of time, had already prepared hot ginger tea and brought out a full set of exquisite jade pieces. "Sir, the madam instructed me to prepare these for you. She said she would come back tonight for dinner with you." Dinner? After a divorce? I shook my head silently, got up, and went upstairs to change into dry clothes, packing the very last of my belongings. After dragging my luggage downstairs and ignoring the butler's shocked questions, I said hoarsely, "When Olivia comes back, have her take a good look at the document she signed a month ago. Tell her that for Olivia, the chapter titled Alex in her story is officially over." With that, I stepped out the front door, took the wedding ring off my finger, and tossed it into the trash can by the entrance. Then, I got into my car. The dark purple sports car sped south, disappearing into the night. The car came to a halt outside Sophia's villa. Seeing the entrance area empty, I took off my sunglasses and asked my driver, "Where's Sophia? Didn't she say she had a surprise for me? Now that I'm finally free, she doesn't even come out to greet me?" Full of questions, I pushed open the main door, which was unusually quiet. Instantly, cheerful piano music began to play. The dimly lit living room suddenly brightened as if it were daytime, revealing everything that had been hidden in the shadows. The room had been newly decorated with pink and white roses, filling the air with a light floral scent. Familiar and unfamiliar faces smiled towards me. A giant, castle-shaped cake was wheeled out from another room. Sophia, dressed in a beautiful pink and white strapless evening gown, was seated at the piano, playing with focused intensity. The music flowed elegantly, like a clear spring. The entire scene felt like a dream, and my heart skipped a beat. I felt enveloped in a sense of unreality, unconsciously drawn forward by the music, step by step, until I stopped beside the piano. Just as the final note faded, Sophia lifted her eyes. They seemed more brilliant than stars, and magically produced a bouquet of roses, presenting it to me. "Alex," she said softly, "thank you for choosing me, for coming to my side." With her words, a wave of cheers erupted from the guests behind me. "Congrats on the divorce! Congratulations on finding new love." Freshly divorced, I felt a bit overwhelmed by the lively celebration. I pursed my lips lightly, a hint of shyness appearing in my eyes. Seeing my ears turn slightly red, Sophia let out a soft smile. She rose from the piano bench and snuggled into my arms. The teasing from the crowd grew louder. I buried my head momentarily in her shoulder, only to hear her laughter-filled words reach my ears. "Alex, you mentioned dedicating your future birthdays to me. Does that offer still stand?" I was slightly taken aback, looking at her in surprise. Under her serious gaze, I nodded gently. In the next moment, Sophia stepped back and suddenly pulled out another bouquet. The crowd's cheers grew even louder, nearly shaking the room. Then, she took a small box from her pocket, revealing a pure, dazzling diamond ring. My breath caught in my throat. It was then I vaguely understood why she had arranged such an elaborate surprise and asked me that question. And just as I suspected, Sophia took my hand and placed a kiss as light as a feather on my right ring finger. Focusing on me, in front of all our friends, she asked with utmost sincerity, "Alex, will you give me the chance to become your fiancé?" Everyone around collectively held their breath, waiting until after the proposal to erupt in shouts of, "Say yes!" My heart raced along with the enthusiastic cheers. Looking into those nearby eyes filled with expectation, memories of countless moments with her flashed through my mind. When we first met, she was there for me. When I was devastated and drinking, she was the one who gently wiped away my tears. When I talked about wanting to support her financially, she hugged me, saying it was her honor that I even noticed her. During countless sleepless nights, she sat beside me, sharing interesting stories to lift my spirits. Sophia made me believe that my life hadn't reached a dead end, that I still had the chance and strength to start anew. She taught me that the strong feelings I was capable of wouldn't just drown in a hopeless marriage, but could be reborn after hardship. I felt I had finally crossed through that nightmarish darkness and reached a new dawn. And waiting there for me was Sophia. So, even though I felt some uncertainty about the future, uneasy about potentially walking straight from one marriage into another commitment, it all vanished when I looked at the person before me. I made the most sincere choice I could, giving the most steadfast answer possible. I do. In the early hours of the morning, Ben's fever finally broke. After ensuring he was asleep, Olivia stepped out onto the hospital balcony. She rubbed her tired eyes and sent 2 messages to my phone. "Alex, I had something to deal with tonight. I'll come see you tomorrow. Are you feeling all right? Is anything bothering you? Need me to send the family doctor over?" The man who usually replied within seconds remained silent. After waiting a few minutes with no response, Olivia likely figured I was asleep and didn't pursue it further. She sank into a chair, answered some work messages, and then opened her social media feed. Mixed in with the usual posts about vacations and parties were a few videos of a proposal, all seemingly filmed from the same event. They were shared by some of my friends. Seeing them, Olivia squinted and clicked on one. The video opened, focusing on the woman being proposed to. Olivia felt the face looked vaguely familiar, like she might have met her somewhere before, but didn't dwell on it. She was about to exit the video when the camera panned slightly to the left, catching the back of the man being proposed to. With just one glance, Olivia sat bolt upright, her eyes wide, holding her phone close to her face. The man's back looked remarkably like mine. That thought flashed through her mind, but she quickly dismissed it. She shook her head, trying to clear the thought. We were still technically married. I still wore my wedding ring. How could I possibly agree to someone else's proposal? It was probably just a friend of mine she hadn't met. With this reasoning, she calmed herself, exited the video, and even left a like on the post. The next minute, she heard coughing from the hospital room. Any thoughts of resting vanished as she went back inside to care for Ben. All night, Ben stirred restlessly, waking frequently. Olivia stayed awake, vigilantly monitoring him in case his fever returned. By morning, she was completely exhausted. She called her assistant to take over watching Ben while she headed home to finally get some rest. When she stepped into the house, she immediately sensed something was different, an unusual emptiness she couldn't quite place. Soon, she noticed that spaces previously filled with items seemed oddly bare. All the collectibles that used to fill 3 or 4 large display cases were gone. The colorful tableware in the dining room cabinet had vanished. The cushions and decorative items from the living room sofa were missing, too. Walking through the house, her frown deepened. When she reached the bedroom and opened the door, intending to ask me what was going on, the sight that greeted her stopped her cold. If the living room had seemed half empty, the bedroom was even more starkly cleared out. Only her clothes remained in a few wardrobes. The vanity table and jewelry areas were wiped clean. Every surface was bare. It finally hit her that something was seriously wrong. I, and all my belongings, were gone. Was I pulling the "I'm upset so I'm moving out" stunt again? That thought ignited a flash of anger in her. She had told me so many times that her involvements were just casual fun. Why couldn't I let it go? Clearly, my recent display of tolerance and indifference had all been an act. Feeling increasingly frustrated, she summoned Mrs. Evans, her tone laced with annoyance. "Mr. Alex moved out, and you didn't inform me? Where did he go?" Mrs. Evans stammered through an explanation, her eyes wide with nervousness. "It's because last time you instructed us that no matter what Mr. Alex does, we should let him be and not bother you with such matters. So, we didn't report it. He had his drivers come pick him up earlier. He probably moved back to his own place. Back to his own place? Did that mean his parents might know too? How could I blow such a relatively small incident so out of proportion? Olivia's expression turned stormy as she grabbed her phone to call me. After letting it ring for a long time with no answer, her patience wore thin. As she kept redialing, she moved towards the bed, pressing her fingers to her weary eyes. A glimpse of a stack of papers on the nightstand caught her attention. Seeing the words "divorce agreement" printed clearly on the top page, she froze. A look of disbelief slowly spread across her face. Divorce? Was this my latest dramatic tactic? Realizing this, fury flared anew within Olivia. Even during our absolute worst fights, I had never brought up divorce. Now, just because I fell into some water and she prioritized someone else, I wanted a divorce? Was my issue with Ben really that significant? Was marriage just a game to me? Anger surged through her, veins bulging slightly on her forehead as she grabbed the papers, about to flip through them angrily, when my voice finally came through the phone, sounding cold. "What's up?" "You're really pulling a divorce stunt just to threaten me. Is this really necessary?" she demanded angrily. Faced with her accusation, I sounded unsettlingly calm on the other end. I picked up a remote, opened the curtains in my room, stretched slightly, and replied slowly, "Of course not." Hearing this, Olivia's tension eased for a fraction of a second, only to spike again with my next words. "Our marriage is already over. Why would I need to threaten you?" "Over?" Olivia let out a sarcastic laugh, her eyes stormy. "You think it's over just because you say so? I will never agree to sign any divorce papers." "Oh, so you haven't actually looked at the contents yet?" I strolled casually to a table, sipping the coffee I had prepared earlier. "I'd advise you not to speak so definitively. Maybe review the agreement first." My nonchalant tone suddenly unsettled Olivia's firm stance. Her grip tightened on the papers, creasing them in her frustration. After a moment of hesitation, she decided against further arguing and opened the agreement. It clearly stated the reason for divorce was infidelity, and marital assets would be divided according to law. At the bottom, her own signature was glaringly present. The moment she saw her name signed there, her mind went blank. Her first thought was that someone must have forged her handwriting. Anger bubbled up. Forging signatures is illegal, she thought. This agreement can't possibly be valid. Forgery? I couldn't help but chuckle softly on the phone, remembering the scene from the day she signed. I could understand her confusion and patiently explained. "If you don't believe it's your signature, you can hire a professional for handwriting analysis. See if it was really you who signed it." Olivia's already tangled thoughts descended into complete chaos. She stared intently at the fancy script of her signature, trying desperately to find any inconsistency, any flaw. But from the first letter to the last, the strokes and style were undeniably hers. She felt a suffocating pressure, as if she couldn't breathe properly. She had no memory of signing this divorce agreement. Did I trick her into signing it when she was drunk or otherwise unaware? That seemed like the only plausible explanation. Finding this sliver of hope, Olivia took a deep breath, her tone becoming firm again. "You tricked me into signing it without my knowledge. It doesn't count." I had expected this reaction. I pulled up a video recording from the day she signed the papers and sent it to her phone. "This divorce is final, Olivia. There's no more room for negotiation. If you have any disputes or disagreements, whether you prefer an amicable settlement or court proceedings, contact my lawyer. He will handle all divorce matters on my behalf." My voice was firm. "Olivia, this marriage is over for me." With a click, the line went dead. Olivia was so angered by my resolute tone that her face turned dark, a stormy expression settling over her features. She opened the video file I sent. As soon as she saw the noisy bar setting in the background, a blurry memory surfaced in her mind. The next second, my crystal-clear voice saying, "Let's get a divorce," played from the phone's speaker. Olivia felt her blood run cold. She fixated on the screen, watching her past self casually answering the phone on the couch, then signing her name on the agreement without a moment's hesitation, completely distracted. She began to shiver uncontrollably. After watching the brief video just once, the hidden memories surged back fully. So, that day, what I had asked her to sign wasn't a property agreement at all, but the divorce papers. Her mind had been entirely preoccupied with her latest flirtation with Ben, so she hadn't truly heard what I said or even looked at what she was signing. I had been telling the truth. She had signed this agreement while completely sober and aware, just utterly distracted. Panic and helplessness washed over her, replacing the anger in her eyes. She stood up abruptly, grabbed the agreement, and raced downstairs to her car, speeding towards my known residence outside the city. Her mind replayed the scene of her signing the document, and my final words before hanging up echoed in her ears. No one knew better than her what kind of person I truly was underneath the hurt. She finally realized this time she had genuinely messed up. After more than 10 years of casually playing the field, Olivia, for the very first time, felt the paralyzing fear of losing something irreplaceable. It overwhelmed her completely. My family informed her that I had not returned home. That single piece of information shattered the last remnants of hope she clung to. She called and messaged me repeatedly, asking where I was, but received no response. Olivia couldn't accept this outcome. Almost like someone possessed, she drove frantically to every place she could think of that held significance for us. Every place we had dated, the properties I had bought out of anger, her parents' old family home, the homes of my friends. After an entire day of searching, she found nothing. She hadn't slept for over 30 hours and was utterly exhausted, running purely on adrenaline. Yet her tense nerves kept her alarmingly alert. She kept downing coffee, trying desperately to focus, to think of where else I could be. As her frustration reached its peak, Ben called. "Olivia, why aren't you answering my messages? If you keep... Get lost!" Hearing his whining voice, Olivia lost any remaining patience for pretense and hung up immediately. Her startled secretary, who had just entered the room, reported timidly, "Miss Olivia, we tracked Mr. Alex's car through road cameras. He seems to have gone to the villa property." The villa. Olivia remembered I owned a villa purchased before our marriage. Leaving her phone behind, she rushed out. Her secretary picked up the phone, intending to follow, just as Ben called again. Watching Olivia's car speed off, the secretary remembered her instructions to prioritize handling Ben's matters and answered the call. "Hello, David. Miss Olivia is busy right now. Yes, she probably went to the villa. When will she be back? I'm not sure." Knock, knock, knock. The urgent pounding on the door made Sophia put down the fruit she was peeling. She glanced towards the bathroom where I was, then walked to the front door. Opening it, she saw Olivia's anxious face. An annoyed look flashed in Sophia's eyes. "Who are you?" Olivia was too focused on finding me to even properly look at Sophia. She tried to push past her into the living room. "Move aside." Seeing her eagerness, Sophia casually twirled the small fruit knife she still held in her hand, blocking Olivia's path, the tip just inches from her face. "This is private property. If you force your way in, you'll have to face the consequences." Seeing the sharp blade, Olivia regained a measure of composure. She stepped back, lifting her head, her eyes dark with anger. Her voice was laced with fury. "This is my house. You're the one trespassing. Who are you?" Sophia smiled slightly, her expression almost pleasant. "This is my fiancé's home." Hearing those words, "fiancé's home," stunned Olivia. She looked up at the nameplate on the wall beside the door, then back at the young woman in front of her. She suddenly realized she recognized this person. It seemed she was the woman from that proposal video she'd seen online. So, was she the fiancée of one of my friends? But this house was registered under my name. Did I give it to a friend? Olivia's mind raced with countless possibilities, but she was still utterly confused. She decided to ask directly, "Who is your fiancé?" Sophia seemed to have been waiting for that question. She put away the fruit knife, gently blew imaginary dust off it, and glanced at Olivia with a look of subtle smugness and satisfaction in her eyes. "Exactly who do you think you are, showing up here?" Hearing my voice, both women turned around. Sophia's haughty demeanor vanished instantly, replaced by the docility of a declawed kitten. "Alex, this person suddenly tried to break into the house. I think she might be a thief. Should I call the police?" Her rapid change in attitude left Olivia momentarily dumbfounded, but the moment her gaze met mine, she snapped back to reality and hurriedly called out, "Alex!" I hadn't expected to walk out of the shower straight into a confrontation between my ex-wife and my fiancé. I wiped the remaining water off my hair with a towel and walked towards the door, speaking in a calm voice. "What are you doing here? Didn't I make it clear? Contact my lawyer if you have issues." That one sentence seemed to extinguish the last glimmer of hope in Olivia's eyes. She visibly deflated, looking panic-stricken and utterly confused. Her voice carried a hint of desperate urgency. "Alex, I think there's been some misunderstanding between us. Can we please talk this through?" I frowned slightly. Instead of responding directly to her, I turned to look at Sophia, my voice softening noticeably. "Weren't you going to make dessert? Go ahead. I'll help you out once I'm finished here." Upon hearing this, Sophia's face fell slightly, and she reluctantly shook her head. "I don't trust this person, Alex." I didn't let her finish, gently coaxing her a few steps back inside before closing the door partway. I then turned back to face Olivia, my voice turning frosty again. "A misunderstanding? I don't think there's any misunderstanding between us, Olivia. Everything you did over the past year actually happened, didn't it? It's perfectly reasonable for a man to divorce a wife who has repeatedly cheated." Watching the way Sophia and I interacted, clearly more than just friends, a strong sense of unease arose in Olivia. She was about to ask me who Sophia really was when my words threw her off balance again. "I was wrong, Alex," she choked out, desperation coloring her tone. "Could you possibly forgive me? Give me just one more chance, and I promise, I swear I won't mess up again. You'll be the only one in my heart, I swear it." I had heard a very similar promise from Olivia 5 years ago when she was trying to win me over initially. Hearing it again now, after everything that had happened, I only found it laughable. "What makes you think," I asked coolly, "that I would give up the freedom I finally regained just to return to a miserable marriage? Why do you believe I would give a second chance to someone who consistently breaks her promises? This isn't a recycling center, Olivia. You've come to the wrong place." My words made Olivia's face turn ghostly pale. She couldn't understand how things had escalated to this point. Her mind felt chaotic, consumed by regret and fear that were slowly eroding her remaining composure. She wanted desperately to explain, to defend herself, but considering her actions, she felt she had no real defense. Silence stretched between us. Who knows how much time passed before a familiar voice called out from the entrance of the property. "Olivia!" Ben, still visibly recovering from his illness, ran over breathlessly and grabbed Olivia's arm. I glanced pointedly at their clasped hands. Olivia, as if suddenly waking from a nightmare, urgently threw his hand off, pushing him forcefully to the ground. Ben, clearly not expecting to be treated this way, especially in front of me, looked up angrily. He met Olivia's cold stare and my brief, almost imperceptible smirk. He likely interpreted my expression as mocking satisfaction, which fueled his own rage. He couldn't help but resort to his usual manipulative tactics. "Olivia, what's wrong? Did he say something mean to you again? Didn't you promise you wouldn't just believe one side of the story? Didn't you tell me yourself that he has a bad temper, but you'd be understanding and—" "Shut up!" His manipulative words halted abruptly as Olivia shot him a chilling glare. Watching their little drama unfold, I couldn't help but find it darkly amusing. I offered a critique. "Since we're already divorced, why don't you let him continue? I'm genuinely curious to hear more about how the person I loved for 5 years turned out to be such a deceitful hypocrite." Olivia's eyes widened, desperate to explain, but Ben interrupted her with a shocked exclamation. "You're divorced?" I nodded, smiling indifferently at the man still sprawled on the ground before him. "Yes, divorced. And I have no intention of ever remarrying you, Olivia. Congratulations, Ben. Looks like it's your turn now." Each word struck Olivia like a physical blow. She trembled uncontrollably, staring at me with despair, but only saw my calm smile. That smile, signifying my liberation, felt 100 times more painful to her than any harsh words I could have uttered. Ashamed to face me any longer, and fearing more unbearable truths, she stumbled away, retreating into the darkening evening. She had to escape. The emotional pain in this place was simply too much for her to bear. Ben hadn't yet recovered from the shock of the divorce news when Olivia pushed him down. He watched her walk further and further away. He slowly got up from the ground, wanting to chase after her. But then something seemed to occur to him. He turned around and gave me a smug look. "Alex, I always told you. You stand no chance against me." I quietly watched him approach, walking down the stone steps one by one until he stood directly in front of me. I was slightly taller than him, so I glanced down easily, seeing the arrogance plain in his eyes. Remembering the water-damaged pocket watch and everything else that had transpired, I realized it was finally time to settle things with him directly. I flexed my fingers, stretching the joints, put on a polite smile, and then delivered a hard slap across his face. The loud smack echoed slightly, surprising him completely. Ben's already flushed face immediately swelled from the impact, and the force knocked him back several meters. Despite the stinging numbness in my own fingertips, I felt incredibly satisfied, a sense of release washing over me. I fearlessly met Ben's fiery, hate-filled gaze and spoke softly. "This slap is for you. Got any complaints?" Ben hadn't expected me to suddenly attack him. He clearly had no physical strength to retaliate effectively. He could only scream threats at the top of his lungs. "Alex, just you wait. Olivia won't let you get away with this when she finds out." Hearing this, my smile grew even brighter. I squatted down slightly, raised my hand, and slapped his other cheek just as hard. The crimson palm print now mirrored on both sides of his face satisfied some deep-seated need for symmetry. My tone became even lighter. "This one's for my pocket watch. Now I consider us even. Of course, if you still want revenge, feel free to bring Olivia along. I wouldn't mind giving her a couple of slaps too, for good measure." With that, I stood up calmly, not sparing Ben another glance. Turning my head, I saw Sophia standing at the window, looking slightly displeased. The moment our eyes met, she hurried over, opened the door, and gently rubbed my hand, her voice filled with concern. "Why didn't you let me join in? Does your hand hurt?" Seeing her, my heart softened instantly. "Nope, doesn't hurt. Next time, why don't you do it for me?" Hearing me speak so tenderly, Sophia's mood finally seemed to improve. She helped me over to the dining table and sat me down, then grabbed some eggs from the kitchen. Watching her bustle around for something so minor, I wanted to stop her. "It's fine. It won't swell up. No need to boil eggs." Sophia ignored me, finishing her task before sitting down beside me, gently rolling a warm, boiled egg in my slightly reddened palm. Seeing her being so earnest about this small gesture, I found it both exasperating and endearing. "Did you get too absorbed in watching the drama outside? Is the pear and silver fungus soup ready yet? I've been looking forward to it." Sophia maintained her silence, refusing to be baited. So, I switched tactics. "Are we heading to City A in a couple of days? Didn't you promise to take me home to meet your family? How about we start packing tonight?" Sophia finally spoke up. "First, a trip to Europe, then City A." "Europe? What for?" Sophia glanced at me, a hint of indulgent compromise in her eyes. "The watch is your grandmother's keepsake, right? We have to get it fixed first. Otherwise, she'd be heartbroken when we visit her." I hadn't expected her thoughtfulness. A wave of warmth spread through me, but I had checked the watch myself on the way over yesterday. It seemed damaged beyond repair, and I didn't want to take a wasted trip. "No need, really. It just stopped working. As long as I still have it, that's what matters." My voice was meant to be reassuring, but Sophia's eyes grew more sympathetic. She set down the egg, took my ring, which she had removed earlier when I showered, from her pocket, and slowly slipped it back onto my ring finger. She spoke earnestly. "Let's go anyway. Treat it like a vacation. Anything related to you, I'm willing to give it a try, even if there's only a 1% chance of success." Despite being unwell and having a swollen face, Ben waited outside the villa all night, unable to get back in. The chilly autumn wind eventually blew away much of his resentment. By dawn, his fever had returned. He resorted to sobbing and constantly texting Olivia, trying to garner sympathy. She didn't respond to any of his messages. It wasn't until the next day around noon that the villa gates finally opened. The noise woke Ben, who had only managed to sleep lightly. He saw Olivia getting into her car. He quickly struggled to his feet and grabbed her hand, his usually pity-inducing eyes welling with tears, his voice extremely mournful. "Olivia, look at my face. Alex hit me. He said if I told you, he'd come after me again." Olivia gave him a cold look, devoid of her previous indulgence and affection. "So what if you got hit? You deserved it. Don't bother him again, got it?" Her dismissive attitude was far from what Ben had imagined. He was stunned, filled with disbelief. "Olivia, what's wrong? Why would you say that? Weren't you going to pamper me forever?" Listening to his forced, pitiful tone, a flash of disgust crossed Olivia's eyes. She pulled her hand away forcefully, pushing him aside. "You think I was serious, Ben? Did you really believe I actually liked you? It was just for fun. The only person I have ever truly loved has always been Alex." Her words shattered all of Ben's hopes. Completely unable to accept this reality, he couldn't maintain his pitiful facade any longer and screamed in frustration. "You lied to me, didn't you, Olivia? Figure it out! You're supposed to like me. If you really liked Alex, why didn't you react when I hit him? Why did you leave him so many times to stay with me?" When Olivia heard those words, she instinctively clenched her fists, feeling a rush of uncontrollable heat surge through her. Her mind raced with images. She remembered the incident by the bridge, the calendar in the villa marking down the days, the argument at the auction house. In every scene, she saw my lonely and dejected figure, my disappointment palpable. It wasn't until she had completely lost me that she finally realized how wrong her past actions had been. Regret washed over her like a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. She didn't want to hear Ben dredge up these painful memories again, but he just wouldn't stop talking, like a floodgate had opened. "Even if you were just playing around, Olivia, you're one of us now. The person you really love can't be Alex. Otherwise, why would you have agreed to the divorce? Isn't it because you have feelings for me?" The word divorce brought the harsh reality crashing back down on her, shattering her remaining sanity. Unable to control herself any longer, she lunged forward and grabbed Ben's skinny neck, her hand squeezing so tightly that the blood drained from her knuckles, turning them white. The red flush quickly spread up his neck, and his face turned a shade of purple. Ben struggled desperately, flailing against her, but he was no match for her strength in that moment. He could only widen his eyes in terror as he felt the air slipping from his lungs. Just when he thought he might actually die right there, Olivia finally released her grip. He collapsed onto the ground like a discarded rag doll. Olivia didn't give him another look, simply instructing her secretary, who had arrived, "Deal with him. I don't want to see him in front of me ever again." When our plane landed in Switzerland, I discovered Sophia had arranged everything flawlessly in advance: transport, a 5-star hotel suite, even a personal concierge to plan our itinerary. The seamlessness of the arrangements surprised me. I remembered Sophia mentioning she came from an ordinary family background. How did she possess such connections and resources internationally? However, with the broken stopwatch weighing on my mind, I didn't dwell on the inconsistency for too long. At the specialist watch repair shop, the master craftsman examined the timepiece and informed us it could still be fixed. I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. In the following days, while waiting for the repair, we traveled leisurely, visiting various sites. Sophia seemed remarkably knowledgeable about Switzerland, almost as if she had spent significant time there before. She could speak eloquently about every landmark and share detailed historical facts. We even ran into some of my international acquaintances on the street unexpectedly and were invited to visit a private manor. There, I was surprised to discover Sophia was proficient in horse riding, tennis, and could even offer insightful critiques on wines produced for European royalty. Day by day, the mystery surrounding Sophia deepened. Whenever I tried to ask a few probing questions about her background, her innocent demeanor always made me feel like I was perhaps overthinking things. On the day we were scheduled to pick up the repaired watch, Sophia ran into a friend near the entrance of the shop. So I went inside, alone. We had return flight tickets booked for that afternoon, so I didn't linger. I quickly retrieved the restored watch and headed back outside. However, once outside, I couldn't see Sophia anywhere nearby. Instead, a small crowd had gathered a few meters away. After scanning the area and still not spotting her, I made my way over to the group to see what was happening. Before I got too close, I heard a voice yelling angrily, a voice very similar to Olivia's. What's it to you?" Hearing it, I froze for a moment. I climbed onto a nearby decorative flower bed to get a clearer view of the commotion. Sure enough, it was Olivia. In just the few days since I'd last seen her, she looked significantly worse for wear, her eyes bloodshot. She had grabbed Sophia by the collar of her shirt. "I'm looking for my husband. What's it to you? Get out of my way!" Sophia appeared much calmer in comparison. She glanced down at Olivia's hand clutching her clothes, then casually batted it away. "Alex already divorced you. Ex-wife. Why try to act tough in front of me?" Seeing this confrontation unfold made me feel uneasy. It wasn't the argument itself that bothered me, but rather Sophia's handling of it. To me, she had always presented herself as a gentle, somewhat dependent young woman who needed my help to solve problems. This defiant, almost brash side of her was completely different from the person I thought I knew over the past 6 months. While I was lost in thought, Olivia, who had just been pushed aside, spotted me standing on the flower bed. Her angry reaction immediately ceased. She pushed through the small crowd and ran towards me. "Alex, why did you come all the way to Switzerland without telling me? Do you know how worried I was when I couldn't find you?" After being together for 5 years, I knew Olivia well enough to recognize that her current worry was likely genuine. But now, I no longer needed this inconsistent, on-again, off-again affection from her. I looked at her quietly, my eyes calm, like the surface of a still lake. Whether I travel overseas or stay home is none of your business, Olivia. Besides, I'm not alone. I'm here with my fiancé. Those words, my fiancé, hit Olivia like a thunderclap, leaving her frozen in place. Her mind went blank, all thoughts ceasing except for one, repeating mechanically, fiancé, fiancé. Amidst her disbelieving gaze, I nodded slowly and called out towards the crowd, Sophia! In the next second, the young woman who had just been confronting someone fiercely transformed back into a meek little lamb. She peeked out from the crowd with wide, innocent eyes. Alex, you're back already. That was quick. I detected a subtle hint of guilt in her voice. I indeed had many questions I wanted to ask her, but that moment, in front of Olivia and the onlookers, wasn't the right time or place. So I pushed aside my doubts for the moment and simply waved her over. Sophia immediately jogged over to my side and instinctively reached out her hand, helping me down from the flower bed. Seeing us interact so comfortably and familiarly, Olivia's stunned expression finally began to crack. She clenched her fists tightly, looking at our intertwined fingers with shock and disbelief. Her voice was sharp, losing control. Is this woman your fiancé? I gently turned Sophia's hand slightly, revealing the 2 gleaming rings, hers and mine, right in front of Olivia's eyes. Is there a problem? My casual tone ignited the simmering fire of rage in Olivia's heart. It's been less than a week since our divorce. I glanced at her calmly, my tone still even. Correction. Including the mandatory cooling-off period, it has been exactly 35 days. This statement left Olivia speechless. She had spent days poring over the divorce agreement with her lawyers, desperately trying to find any loophole, any grounds for contesting it. But even after a team of top-notch legal experts reviewed it, they concluded there was nothing legally challengeable. She had even contacted my lawyer, hoping to negotiate and somehow void the agreement, but their stance remained firm. If an amicable settlement couldn't be reached regarding asset division, they would proceed with filing the divorce in court based on the signed agreement. Olivia knew this reflected my final decision. If you want to untie the knot, you sometimes have to cut it yourself. Left with no other options, she had composed herself to find me, chasing me all the way abroad. She probably thought that once she found me, admitted her faults, and perhaps reminisced about our 5 years together, I would soften and eventually take her back. But reality struck Olivia hard. She had never imagined I would agree to someone else's proposal just days after our divorce became technically possible. Her gaze locked onto Sophia's face. Suddenly, memories she had previously shelved or ignored flashed back. The social media posts from my friends showing the proposal, the woman proposing, the figure whose back resembled mine. Only then did Olivia fully realize she had already witnessed evidence of my new relationship. At the time, she had been too engrossed in her flirtation with Ben to recognize the significance or believe that I was truly determined to divorce her. All at once, those sharp, unforgettable feelings of pain and regret resurfaced, completely extinguishing the tiny spark of hope she might have still harbored. Meeting my now completely emotionless eyes, she bitterly asked her final question. Are you with her just to get back at me, Alex? At those words, Sophia's eyes flickered too, turning gently to look at me. Facing these 2 pairs of meaningful, questioning stares, I remained unfazed, because I already had my answer prepared. From the day I received the finalized divorce papers from my lawyer, I knew that as soon as Olivia learned the full truth, she would inevitably ask this question. After all, from her perspective, I had been so deeply in love with her that she felt she could openly cheat, using the excuse of not having had enough fun yet, while still believing my love for her was unshakable. She probably thought that even if I did eventually move on to someone else, it could only be out of a desire for revenge against her. She wanted to use this distorted reasoning as a way to comfort herself, to rationalize her own past actions. See, she might tell herself, true, unwavering love doesn't exist in the world. All those past flirtations were just part of human nature. Anyone else in her position couldn't control themselves either. They'd likely make the same choices. Even the man she tried to settle down with, the one who supposedly loved her deeply, couldn't remain faithful or constant for her. So, why be so hard on herself? If love is inherently fickle, why not give only half-hearted loyalty to it? Better to enjoy playing the game while young, and then simply settle for someone similar when tired of the chase. Those were, I believed, Olivia's underlying thoughts during her numerous affairs after our marriage. At first, I didn't understand this mindset. It wasn't until I recklessly initiated a relationship with Sophia, suggesting we have a casual fling, that I first tasted a similar feeling myself. The difference was, back then, I felt immense guilt for breaking my marital vows. I desired revenge against Olivia, but I also hated myself for being unfaithful. These conflicting emotions tormented me, nearly driving me insane. It was only after the sudden, near-fatal car accident that I finally saw through the confusion and found a path towards liberation. What was love? What was hate? In the face of life and death, they seemed like hollow concepts. Once you're gone, reduced to ashes, nothing remains. For unworthy people and pointless struggles, was it really worth torturing myself, wasting my precious life away? I was only 27. Why should I tie my entire future to Olivia? This was the answer I arrived at regarding my seemingly unsolvable marriage dilemma after surviving the accident. So, after I recovered, when Sophia jokingly asked again for a formal commitment, I agreed. I decided to let myself off the hook, to stop spiraling downwards and potentially becoming someone as lost and dissolute as Olivia. I still had the courage to start over. I had someone who seemed to wholeheartedly love me, and an unimaginable future lay ahead. Olivia and I were never truly on the same path. And now, with time having passed, I finally had the chance to speak those long-held thoughts clearly, directly to Olivia, word by word, leaving no room for doubt. Revenge? I admit I once thought about getting revenge on you, but later I realized it wasn't worth sacrificing my own life and future for your shallow, cheap version of love. So, choosing to be with Sophia wasn't about revenge. It was simply because we love each other. To me, love means being together, commitment. And not having it means breaking up. It's a simple and straightforward decision. You didn't need to make so many excuses to cover up your change of heart, Olivia. You could have just told me honestly that you didn't love me anymore, and I would have willingly left. But you kept dragging things out, preventing me from moving on. The years I spent married to you were the darkest, most painful period of my life, but I'm through with it now. I've moved on. I've decided to finally let myself off the hook. Maybe you're one of those people who believe they can be in love with many others simultaneously. Maybe the open relationships you talked about will become the norm someday. And maybe one day you'll wake up, gather back all those scattered pieces of your heart, and decide to return home. But none of that matters to me anymore, Olivia, because you and I have never been on the same path. Not before, not now, and certainly not in the future. After saying that, I didn't take another look at Olivia's devastated expression. I got into the waiting car with Sophia. In the rearview mirror as we drove away, Sophia could see Olivia breaking down, collapsing onto the ground. She couldn't quite suppress the slight upturn at the corners of her mouth. But in front of me, she maintained her facade of the sweet, innocent girl. She turned her head slightly to hide her reaction. When she felt she had composed her expression, she turned back, only to meet my somewhat suspicious gaze. "If you're going to feel smug, do it openly. Why hide it?" I asked quietly. "Oops, looks like I've been caught," Sophia replied, realizing her attempt at subtlety failed. Her smile froze for a moment, but then quickly returned to normal. She clung to my arm, acting coyly, trying to smooth over the moment. "I was laughing because you said we're in love, Alex, not because I was gloating over her." Her quick change in demeanor surprised me slightly. I reached out and gently lifted her chin, forcing her to look directly at me. "I remember telling you, when we first set the rules for our arrangement, that I don't appreciate deceit. I'll give you one more chance. You'd better be honest with me now." Although my tone was gentle, Sophia could sense my underlying displeasure. She dropped her smile and finally told the truth. "Okay, I was gloating, a little." Seeing that she admitted it, I blinked, then asked the next logical question. "So, you know who she is?" Hearing this question, Sophia's fingers instinctively tightened their grip on my arm slightly. She didn't answer right away. The truth was, she didn't quite know how to respond. After all, in my eyes, she had always played the role of the obedient, trouble-free companion. I had told her not to try and find out who my wife was, so she pretended ignorance. I had told her to stay quietly at the villa assigned to her without revealing her identity, so she played along in our complicated, not-so-pure relationship. She had hidden her true self, partly to catch my attention, partly just to stay by my side, waiting for the right opportunity, the perfect moment to potentially replace Olivia. Now that her wish had essentially come true, Sophia knew she should be honest about everything, but she worried. After all the betrayal and deception I had experienced, if I learned that she had also deceived me, even with good intentions, I might leave her too. So she had kept the secret hidden, hoping to maintain it for as long as possible. But now it seemed she couldn't hide it anymore, especially given the serious look I was giving her, which made her feel incredibly nervous, like sitting on pins and needles. In her mind, two little voices argued, one urging her to construct another lie, the other telling her to finally stop pretending and be completely honest. She felt torn, unsure which voice to listen to. It wasn't until my warm, slender hand gently grasped her overly anxious, fidgeting one, grounding her, that she felt a measure of calm. Then, my voice, quiet but with a hidden strength, spoke in her ear. "You're my fiancée now, aren't you? Aren't there some secrets you're willing to share with me, Sophia?" That single sentence seemed to cut through all the troubling thoughts swirling in her mind. Sophia finally found the courage to look up and meet my gaze head-on. In her eyes now, there was no longer the fake compliance or meekness, but rather endless determination mixed with a flicker of lingering hesitation. She didn't want to lie to me anymore. At least for this moment, she wanted to be her true self. "Actually," she began softly, "the first time we really met wasn't at that bar. It was about a month earlier, at a large party you attended with Olivia, but halfway through the evening, she left you alone to go dance with someone else. You sat by yourself at a table, drinking quietly, while everyone around whispered about the two of you. I remembered your name from gossip columns. Then, later that night, when you encountered Olivia again while she was drunk, you smashed a bottle near her shoulder, not hitting her, but making a statement. You were quick, decisive, and your words were sharp. Everyone else was stunned into silence, but you didn't seem to care. You just left the room with your head held high. That image left a lasting impression on me. After that," she continued, "I gradually learned more about your situation with Olivia. I was curious about why someone who seemed so capable and strong would trap themselves in such a clearly toxic marriage, seemingly unable to let go. I have an insatiable curiosity, I suppose. And it seems there was some element of fate involved because, who could have known, we met again at that bar shortly after. That night you were very drunk and mistook me for Olivia. You cried in my arms and poured out all your sorrow and pain. Oddly enough, even though a part of me thought you kind of deserved the situation you were in, I couldn't help but hold you and comfort you through the night. And that's really where our story began. You felt incredibly guilty afterward for mistaking me for someone else and insisted on compensating me financially. I didn't accept it, but you actually tracked me down at my school, trying to force cash on me. After that day, rumors started spreading throughout the campus that I was being kept by an older, wealthy man. Everyone was talking about it. To clear my name, I had to find you again to return the money. When I found you, you had just had another fight with Olivia and were drunk again. You saw me, and, perhaps still confused or just reckless, said you wanted to keep me, to have an affair. Honestly, my first instinct was to refuse flat out. But your eyes, they looked so vulnerable, so lost. And I guess I have a soft heart. I couldn't bring myself to just walk away, so I agreed. Later on, Sophia admitted, I often wondered why I made such a foolish decision back then. Was it really just because I'm soft-hearted? Actually, I think part of me was hopeful. I hoped to see you eventually free yourself from that mess, to see you regain your strength and independence. But all your subsequent choices, staying with Olivia despite everything, just kept disappointing me. I couldn't understand why you stayed with her, or why you seemed to think that keeping me on the side was somehow the best revenge against her. She's just a mess, seemingly incapable of genuine feeling. Even if you got your revenge, would it even matter to her? You'd still be the one getting hurt in the process, right? But I have to admit, she confessed, looking down for a moment. Every second I spent around you, I couldn't help but get drawn to you more. As long as it didn't involve Olivia, you were always so calm, collected, almost laid back. I really liked that side of you. That's why I was willing to play the somewhat degrading part, act all helpless and dependent, just to stay close to you. It wasn't until the car crash, her voice grew serious, seeing you in the hospital, covered in blood, unconscious, that I first seriously thought about actively trying to snatch you away, to keep you safe. If before I had wanted you to leave Olivia mostly out of sympathy, from that moment on, I realized I had been fooling myself. I liked you far too much to just wait patiently for you to make up your own mind. I was ready then to take you away, even if you hadn't agreed to the divorce. Thankfully, she sighed, a look of relief washing over her face. When you woke up, you finally seemed to break free from that mental prison that had held you back for so long. You have no idea what it meant to me when you finally promised me a rightful place in your life and agreed to the divorce. I was practically ready for a ring to magically fall from the sky so I could put it on your finger right then and there. I wanted you bound securely to my side so you wouldn't have a chance to change your mind. Luckily, she finished, looking up at me again, you didn't change your mind. Relief and genuine happiness shone on Sophia's face, mixed with a barely noticeable lingering panic about my reaction. Seeing that complexity, that mix of emotions on her face, I felt a swirl of feelings myself. I had never considered our story from her perspective, never imagined it ran so deep or held so much unspoken history. Two people, both harboring hidden feelings and motivations, never fully admitting them, somehow ended up together. There were no major misunderstandings between us, no significant doubts voiced, no real fights. Everything just seemed to happen naturally, organically, almost as if fate itself was guiding us towards each other. It felt like some unseen force had pointed the way for me, clearing the dense fog that had clouded my life for so long. Up high in the sky, silky, soft clouds floated past the airplane window, looking almost close enough to touch. After dozing off for a while, I woke to find a pair of eyes intently watching me. I picked up my phone and saw that only a couple of hours had passed since our conversation. I couldn't help but frown slightly, still processing everything. Seeing this, Sophia nervously offered me some water she had ready. "Did you have a nightmare, or dream about something unpleasant?" I was indeed thirsty, so I took the water and drank it down quickly. Just as I set the glass down, the plane flew over a brightly lit city below. I stared down at it for a while, lost in thought, then turned back to see Sophia looking pouty and slightly upset. "Alex, I just spilled my entire story to you. Why are you ignoring me? Are you still mad at me?" I realized then that I hadn't said a word for quite some time. I had been genuinely shocked by her revelations, replaying the past events in my head from this new perspective. Absorbed in thought, I hadn't been in the mood to talk much on the plane and had drifted off to sleep. The whole conversation had temporarily slipped my mind. Only when she tentatively prodded me did I remember I still needed to respond properly. To be fair, I was a little annoyed about Sophia deceiving me for so long. It wasn't the initial lie itself. From the beginning, I had wrongly assumed she was just an ordinary young woman needing financial help, and my offer to keep her stemmed from that sleazy assumption. I admitted to myself that wasn't what bothered me now. It was the fact that she kept up the pretense, even after I had confirmed the divorce was proceeding, even after I had accepted her proposal. She still hadn't come completely clean until directly confronted. How long had she planned on hiding the truth? So, while I had largely forgiven her actions based on her explanation, some frustration lingered, needing a proper resolution. Seeing her resort to playing the fragile, pouty card again made my heart soften against my will. To prevent myself from getting completely swayed by her tactics, I gently covered her face with my hand and said calmly but firmly, "Of course, I'm still a bit annoyed. You've kept significant things from me for such a long time. How do I know if you're telling me the complete truth even now? What if you're still hiding something important?" Through my fingers, Sophia saw my stern expression and quickly raised her right hand as if taking an oath. "I swear, Alex, I've told you everything. If I'm hiding anything else, may I be struck by—" She hadn't finished her dramatic oath before I covered her mouth, feeling exasperated. "We're tens of thousands of feet up in the sky. Don't say things like that. Look, I'll ask you some questions, and you need to answer honestly. Based on your answers, I'll decide whether to fully forgive you or not." Seeing a chance to clear the air, Sophia eagerly nodded. "Okay," I began. "You said your family background was average. How average are we talking?" "Well," she hesitated slightly, "some money, a few houses. If I wanted any particular piece of jewelry, it could probably be bought after some effort. That kind of average." Hearing that definition of average, I recalled offering her a few $1,000,000 as initial compensation. Why hadn't I offered more? A few million. No wonder she wasn't interested. She probably thought I, supposedly a wealthy man, was being incredibly stingy. I felt like I had seriously let down the reputation of wealthy patrons everywhere. But I wasn't about to admit that thought aloud. Who asked about jewelry? You didn't even accept the support money I offered. How could I expect you to accept expensive jewelry from me? "It's not that I didn't want it," Sophia explained quickly. "I was just worried you'd think I was only after your money and decide to dump me. I wanted to show you my sincerity first." After a lengthy quanda session on the flight, asking about various details she had mentioned, I felt I had a reasonably decent grasp of Sophia's true background and motivations. I finally softened completely and forgave her lingering deception. She was thrilled, seriously overjoyed. Once we were off the plane, she whisked me right off towards her home city. Before our trip to Switzerland, I had promised her I would meet her family. But as the car rolled smoothly into a luxurious gated villa district located in the heart of a city A, I fell silent. I turned to her, my voice laced with dry amusement. "This is your average family home?" "Not exactly average, maybe," she replied sheepishly. "My parents always reminded us to stay humble and low-key. Perhaps their constant reminders confused my definition of average." Hearing this near-perfect, smooth reply, I realized for the first time that Sophia was quite adept at talking her way out of situations. I was about to gently chide her for the understatement when the car stopped. I looked out at the dozen or so people waiting formally at the entrance to greet us, and a flicker of genuine surprise broke through my usually calm exterior. Weren't we just supposed to meet a few immediate family members? Why was there such a large welcoming committee? Before I could fully process the scene, Sophia opened the car door, pulled me out, and immediately started making introductions. "Hi, everyone. This is my fiancé, Alex. Alex, this is my dad, my mom, my big brother, and over there are my aunt and uncle." As I was introduced to each person, I barely dared to lift my head too much. Even though I had heard about her prominent family, I had never had any direct interaction with them before, neither through my own family connections nor during my marriage to Olivia. Only Sophia's older brother, Ethan, the so-called cold and aloof leader of the family business empire, had I seen a few times at large banquets. It seemed like Ethan remembered me too, casting several evaluating glances my way. My already racing heart started pounding even faster. After the initial round of small talk finally ended, I used the excuse of needing the restroom to escape for a quick breather. But as I stepped out of the main reception area, I bumped right into Ethan. It felt almost like he had been waiting for me there. He extended his hand, a chilly look still present in his eyes. "I didn't get a chance to properly greet you earlier. Should I call you Alex or perhaps Mr. Olivia?" His deliberately pointed comment momentarily froze the polite smile on my lips. But I quickly composed myself, shook Ethan's cool hand, and answered with quiet dignity. "Alex is fine. My marriage with Olivia is completely over." "Just ended," Ethan pressed. "And you are already with my sister, Sophia, and even engaged?" The direct question made my scalp tingle. My mind raced, trying to formulate a reasonable explanation, but no matter how I phrased it internally, it always sounded somewhat improper, rushed. After some thought, I decided honesty, however potentially awkward, was the best approach. "I met Sophia while I was still married," I admitted frankly. "So technically, yes, I cheated, but I have no regrets about choosing to be with her now." Ethan seemed surprised by my candidness. His usually expressionless face showed a flicker of interest. He nodded slowly, then asked another pointed question. "Sophia is considerably younger than you, isn't she? About 5 years younger?" I quickly did the mental calculation, feeling a little nervous now. I immediately picked up on the implication that I might have taken advantage of the age difference to mislead a younger, perhaps more naive, woman. Although there might have been some truth to the initial dynamic, things had evolved. And with Sophia clearly committed and unwilling to give up on our relationship, I certainly didn't want to back down or appear weak in front of her older brother. I mustered up some courage. "She is younger, yes, but she is an adult, fully capable of making her own decisions. I respected her wishes and followed my own heart when agreeing to her proposal." The cramped hallway space fell silent for a long moment. I stared at the silent man across from me, feeling like I might suffocate if we stayed there any longer. I was just about to lose my composure when Sophia suddenly appeared. She took in the scene, me looking stressed, her brother looking stern, and immediately understood what was happening. With a raised eyebrow, she stepped protectively in front of me, facing her brother. "Big brother, didn't I already talk to you about my situation with Alex? Why are you trying to intimidate him now?" Already discussed? Hearing this, I looked up instinctively. When our gazes met, Ethan's tone softened considerably as he addressed his sister. What you mentioned before was just your side of the story, Sophia. This is a significant matter, after all. I had to check things out for myself. So, it was just a test. I instantly relaxed, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Before I could fully recover, I saw Sophia was about to argue back with her brother, likely defending me further. I hurried to stop her. It's all right, Sophia. I actually wanted to have this chat with Ethan. There shouldn't be any secrets between family. Hearing my words, the icy look in Ethan's eyes seemed to crack a little more, warming ever so slightly. He glanced at his protective younger sister, then back at me. As for your divorce from Olivia, he stated matter-of-factly, she's apparently not looking to settle things privately. I've already lined up a top legal team. I'll personally handle the case proceedings, so you two don't need to worry about it. Once the paperwork is finalized, following our parents' wishes, you'll need to have a proper engagement ceremony. Is that all you have to say? Sophia asked her brother directly. Faced with his younger sister's pointed question, Ethan simply nodded before turning and walking away. I hadn't expected things to resolve so smoothly, or for Ethan to offer such direct support. I leaned towards Sophia, whispering a question. Sophia, are your folks truly okay with my recent divorce? Ethan, who had only reached the corner of the hallway, turned back slightly, looked at us, and spoke in a deep, resonant voice. My sister is a grown woman, Alex, as you yourself said. She possesses her own judgment and decision-making abilities. As long as she is willing and happy, we will respect her wishes and won't interfere. This has always been our family's tradition. Having witnessed so many complicated twists, turns, and interferences among elite families over the years, this was the first time I had encountered such a straightforward, non-interventionist family custom. I was genuinely taken aback. Your family seems very different from the rumors, I murmured. Sophia found my rare, shocked expression endearing. Holding my hand gently, she explained softly, It's your first time meeting everyone formally, so it's understandable if you feel puzzled. Once you get more familiar with them all, you'll see that they're quite different from how they might be portrayed publicly. Take my brother Ethan, for example. He may seem stern and unapproachable in business, but he's actually famous within the family for being a complete pushover at home. If my sister-in-law says go east, he wouldn't dare even glance west. And my parents? They're basically retirees who enjoy peace and quiet, so they don't really speak up much in noisy settings or get involved in drama. After staying with Sophia's family for about half a month, I gradually began to fit in. I genuinely felt that they welcomed me warmly and sincerely wished Sophia and me well. The anxiety and apprehension I had felt before arriving slowly faded away, replaced by a sense of comfort and belonging. As temperatures began to drop significantly and cold air moved in, the weather forecast predicted heavy snow towards the end of the month. Upon hearing this news, Sophia promptly started packing our bags, insisting that she wanted me to experience the season's first snowfall back in my hometown. Having grown up in the north, this would be my first winter spent entirely in the milder southern climate. Enjoying the pleasant weather there, I kept trying to delay our departure, saying, "Let's wait a bit longer before heading into the snow." After putting it off repeatedly, we finally found ourselves on a plane heading north, thanks to Emily's persistent persuasion, the day before the predicted heavy snowfall. As soon as our plane landed, large snowflakes began to fall, blanketing the landscape in white. However, Sophia wasn't nearly as excited about the snow as I had expected her to be. Instead, she seemed eager, almost urgent, to head straight home. Seeing her haste, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slightly off. Wasn't the whole point of rushing back here to see the first snow? Why was she so indifferent now that it was actually snowing? I figured she must have something else up her sleeve, some plan she hadn't fully revealed. So I deliberately stalled a bit as we collected our luggage. Sophia held out for only about 10 minutes before she finally spilled the beans, looking slightly impatient but also endearing. Alex, you've already accepted my proposal, but you still haven't taken me to formally meet your parents? By the end of next month, I'll reach the legal age to get married. Don't you think we should probably lock this down officially soon? So that was it. She just wanted the parental seal of approval. I sighed, looking at her with a more than a little helpless expression. Are you really in such a rush to get married? But my divorce isn't even finalized yet. Getting married right now would be illegal, wouldn't it? Sophia took my hand and tucked it into the pocket of her warm coat, leading me slowly out into the gently falling snow. My brother said the divorce paperwork should be completely wrapped up by early next month. Besides, she added pragmatically, your folks might not be thrilled with the idea of a daughter-in-law as young as me. We need to start working on getting them on board now. You're probably right about that, I conceded. But what if they really don't agree? Then, Sophia advised with a confident smile, you'll just have to talk me up a bit more. Sing my praises constantly. They'll come around eventually,